Hello, welcome to Claret and Blue Podcast. I'm Dan Rolinson, joined by John Townley. John, you've had a week off. How was it?
Yeah, stressful. I've moved out, so doesn't feel like a week off at all, to be fair. No, I'm doing well, thanks, mate. Villa's back this weekend, which I missed.
Thank God.
I mean, international breaks just so dull and boring, isn't it? Like, I don't know what people do, like, who don't watch football or, you know, I don't know what they do on the weekend. Like, it must be such a boring existence, seriously.
We'll talk more about internationals in a sec, so I want to touch on the international break, but I've got to hear more about you moving house. How is it? What's it like living with your partner? How's it like living without your parents? Are you surviving?
Yeah. No, it's all good. I've obviously lived away before, being at like uni and stuff. So
course,
yeah, like setting up for work and stuff. It's different. Being in a different part of town, I suppose. I'm in Bromsgrove now.
One thing I can guarantee will crop up in the comments will say, "You live on your own in your own place now, John. Get a Villa shirt up on that wall. Get something in the background." Do you want to explain what's going on?
Well, I can't put anything on the walls because I'm renting at the moment, so that's unfortunate. We'll have to put up I don't know, like a stand or as we said off air, like a bookshelf or something, just to kind of make it more. Because I had a blank wall, didn't I, in my old house, and now it's another blank wall, so it's a bit boring. I always wear white or black shirts as well, so it's you're like all Villa with your merch as well. So
yeah, I'm trying to overcompensate on the other side of the screen with just everything going on. Probably a little bit too much, to be honest. Anyway, let's talk about the international break a little bit before we get into it. This is going to be a Q&A episode. Basically, we've got comments sent in from viewers via voice notes, which I'll interweave throughout the podcast. So we're going to go off on loads of different tangents throughout this show. Obviously, no Villa match at the weekend, as you mentioned, so nothing fresh to talk about since the defeat to Liverpool. International break. I saw a clip yesterday, an old clip of Harry Redknapp in the old BT studios back in the day, slagging off international breaks, saying, I don't know what the point of them are, bring back Premier League football. And that's how I feel. I didn't even watch England on the weekend. I probably won't watch it Tuesday, I think they play. I just don't care. I know we did a podcast once before, like club versus country, and I'm massively on the club side. I can't be bothered to watch Gareth Southgate football in European qualifiers.
No, I did watch it. I'll always watch England games. I'm not much of I understand the whole like club versus country, but like I'll still support England in every game.
Yeah.
Even in like Nations League, I'm up for it. Like when England play, it's fantastic. But to wait a whole week to not watch Villa just to see England play San Marino or Malta or even Ukraine. I mean, even if it's a half decent country, to be honest, like I don't know. Half decent, but we're a very good country like Spain or Germany or whatever, even though we're better than them now. Even if it's in qualifying, it's a bit dull, like because we know we're going to qualify. So I'll still watch the games, and I'll still, because that is the only football match you're going to watch over that weekend, unless it's another decent international game. But they don't seem to be on TV nowadays, do they? All the other ones, they seem to be on like a Viaplay or something, which I don't have. It
says everything about England and Gareth Southgate football for me that when you're saying it's the only game you're going to watch that weekend, I would rather not watch any football. That's how much bothered I'm about watching a Gareth Southgate team play. This isn't an England podcast, so we are going to talk about Villa in a sec. Before we get to that, I'm going to have to do a bit of a clarification on something, because I'm going to be drinking out of this utensil, if that's the right word, throughout this, and I don't look like an absolute idiot. Before we started, you said that obviously you just moved and you got a lot of your furniture on the cheap and kind of maybe made some wrong choices in certain areas. I feel like I've done the same thing, so I ordered a water bottle over the weekend from Amazon, right? And it's like a flask, because I wanted it to be for hot drinks at some stages and cold drinks as well. But it's got a straw in the top, which I thought was easy to drink. I'm on the go, got the baby, whatever. I ordered it, arrived this morning, and it's good because I've got to start drinking more water. If anything, this hot weather has taught me that I don't drink enough. I'm probably dehydrated, so I need a big drink to get through the day. Sat at my desk, I don't want to keep using mugs and whatnot. So I ordered this flask and it came this morning. The box was massive, and I was like, that's quite a big box for just a drinking flask. It's huge. And the reason I'm only going to tell you this is because I'm going to have to drink out of it at some stage throughout this podcast, and I'm going to look silly. So I've got it here. All right, you ready? I say it's only a litre, which is still quite a lot, but I've seen litres. And it is good. I just need to clarify, if you see me picking this up at podcast at some point, I didn't think it was going to be this big. So I've made an error. As we were talking about England and Gareth Southgate maybe leaving, let's switch that over to Villa and Coutinho, who has now left Aston Villa, as a terrible segue, but we've got to start talking about all things Claret and Blue at some stage. On last week's round of Claret and Blue, Matt Kendrick did the Monday show last week, well, we spoke about Liverpool and how that wasn't kind of the end of the world. Me and James Rushton did a show on Wednesday, which was like ranking the transfer window. And we had Alex Berwick on Friday as we ranked the Villa players' squad depth, and we called it the Villa ladder. And we'll talk about that later as well. So we haven't really spoken about current events since last week. Obviously, Coutinho is confirmed to have left on loan since then to Qatar. Do you want to just talk through that and your thoughts on his transfer as a whole, really?
Yeah, I think it's disappointing, firstly, that it's only a loan. I'm sure Villa would have liked to have taken a transfer fee from it, and whatever fee they take from it next summer or in January or whenever, it's not going to be as much as what they would have got this summer, presumably, because the contract's going down. And I think even if he does play well in Qatar, that's not going to put extra millions on his price tag, is it really? So
I suppose it would improve his fitness if he could play for 6 months without getting injured. That might make somebody think, oh, we can decide to spend money on him because at least he's proved to be able to stay fit.
Yeah, but I presume he's, by going to Qatar, he's kind of resigned that his career's over in a way, which is, I don't know, it's difficult because I don't think he was shot completely. I think he still had something to contribute for Villa, not for 90 minutes, but in patches and spells, and Villa are a top 7 team in the Premier League, so it's not as if he was playing a bad level for a poor team. He's clearly got something still there. But if he's going to Qatar and if he's playing well in Qatar, I don't think a club in Europe then thinks, oh, we can take Coutinho now when he's 33 or whatever. So in terms of the transfer fee Villa get, yes, those clubs have money, but also they're not going to spend 20 million on Coutinho, are they? Even if he plays well. So yeah, disappointing that there'll be no transfer fee or sizable transfer fee, or Villa will recoup any sort of money back from the 17 million pounds that they spent on him only 12 months ago. Al De Gea will be paying 100% of the wages. Emery just couldn't trust him. Yes, he can contribute, as I said, but you don't know whether next week he's going to be injured or whether he's not going to be available because of fitness or whatever it may be. So it's a sad turn of events for him, really, because at Villa he had 7 goal contributions in 8 games, which is quite remarkable, really, considering then
good. Really good.
Yeah, and since then he had 37 games for Villa and 2 goal contributions. So like the fall off is insane, really.
Do you think a loan move makes sense? Obviously, the window closed before we moved on to Qatar on loan this year, so Villa's wages are freed up for this season, so they could redistribute it in January, I guess. But Coutinho going to a Middle East club, you kind of go, well, if he's going to go over there, it's because they're spending a lot of money across Saudi Arabia, for example, on big transfer fees, and maybe Villa will get lucky and one of them will pay 10, 15 million for Coutinho and we kind of won't miss out. For him to only go out on loan, could he not have just stuck around and done a job for Villa? Like, I know that because I know the wages are covered and I get that, but a loan's like he could be back here in 12 months' time.
He will. I presume. I was thinking actually the other day, when the players come back and it's like recorded, them walking through the building and stuff. That would be Coutinho in 12 months, and we'll be like,
it's weird, isn't it?
But obviously, he has no future at Villa, judging by this. So yeah, he will go. We just don't know where and how much for. But what we do know is that the transfer fee won't be more than what it would have been now, because as we said, his contract's going down, and I don't think him playing well in Qatar is going to prove anyone anything. So Villa saved millions of pounds not paying his wage. That's the bonus, I suppose, and that will look better on the books than us paying over 100 grand a week for a player who might not contribute this season. I thought he might be able to, but if Emery doesn't think that he can, then that's fine by me. Villa are still in a really good shape without Coutinho. It's just a shame it didn't work out, because he was he made such an impact, didn't he, when he first joined, and there was real excitement and a real buzz when he joined on loan.
Let's talk about a player that still is here then. Youri Tielemans has spoken to the press over the international break. Now, I feel like some of these quotes have maybe not mistranslated, isn't the right word, but maybe sound worse than they are having been translated. So some of the lines that have been pulled out that not pleasant as a pull quote, as the situation is not pleasant, Tielemans said, is a strange thing to say. That sounds like a mistranslation. I don't know whether anyone wants to say that a situation is not pleasant. The bit I want to focus on, and again, some of this is kind of a little caveat of, is it exactly what was said or not? I may not start at Aston Villa, but I have attended every training session so far and played in every match. Now, first of all, attended every training session, again, is something you don't say, because of course he's going to have attended every training session.
Yeah,
I've spoken to the manager of Aston Villa about the fact I'm not playing. He now chooses other players, but it is up to me to do my best. He said there would still be opportunities to play. That explanation doesn't help me much, but I hope I can show myself a little more in the coming weeks. Whether it's a word for word quote of what was said and then translated into English is not really the point. The overall message is that he's clearly unhappy, I suppose, with the lack of playing time so far. It's 4 games in the Premier League, a couple of games in the Conference League. Part of me feels like it's far too early to be complaining about a lack of game time. Part of me feels like good mentality. What do we want him to be say that I'm happy to sit on the bench?
Well, firstly, as you said, Dan, I don't want to say they've been taken out of context because they haven't. He's said words, or at least words to those to that effect.
The message is the same.
Yeah, but you have to put yourself in that press conference and someone's asked him, I don't exactly know what the question is, but it would have been along the lines of, you haven't played much this season. What do you think about it? What do you think he's going to say? As you said, he's not going to say, he's not going to say,
I love picking up my wage on the bench. If he said that would be a problem.
Yeah. I want to be an impact sub. What? This is Youri Tielemans. This isn't a player who's come from, I don't want to name any other club, but this is a player who is played in the Champions League, is playing for Belgium, which is one of the best footballing nations. Starting. So he's going to say that. The only thing that I'd mention, and I mentioned this when he signed, and I'm not sure what he expected, really. And again, I don't want to say, firstly, Tielemans he's not thrown his toys out the pram by doing any of this. It's none of that. He's just asked a question, are you happy with your game time? He's going to say no, obviously. But he didn't really clarify in terms of, he did clarify saying, but I'll try and work my way back into the team and things like that. And that's kind of going on to my point of, in the first 4 games of the season, did anyone expect Douglas Luiz not to play or start every game? No. And did everyone expect Kamara to play every game? No. Both of those players are 2 of the first players on the team sheet, in my opinion. The only thing I'd say is I'm not sure how that changes, even if Tielemans plays well against Hibernian or whoever, because Luiz is our player of the season last season and one of our best players, and Kamara performs a role which I don't think any other player in the squad can, in terms of being that ball winner in the double pivot. If you put Tielemans in, one of those players misses out, and can you put Tielemans in a more advanced role? You can, but then where does Jacob Ramsey play? Where does John McGinn play? Does that affect Alex Moreno, where he played? So if Tielemans comes in, I think it has a big knock-on effect for something else. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not. This is what happened when he signed. I said straight away, it's a fantastic signing because it's a free and it's adding a lot of good squad depth. And we said straight away, if Douglas Luiz gets injured, if Kamara gets injured, while they're not exactly replicas of each other, it's quality coming into the squad, and there's not going to be a big drop-off. However, Tielemans starting over those players, at least in the first month of the season, I don't think anyone expected that. And if he did, then okay, fair enough. I'm not surprised, basically. I'd say it's a good mentality. I think it's anyone's mentality. If you're not playing and you know that you're a very good player and you've joined Villa to make an impact, then you're going to be upset. And Emery wants his players to feel upset when they're not playing as well. That's what every manager wants. You want to promote competition. If Tielemans was, as you say, satisfied to be on the bench and coming off every now and again, that's not a player that that's not the player you want in your squad.
Yeah, it's cover for injuries, and Alex Barrett made a good point on the show we did on Friday that maybe Tielemans' role comes in when Kamara is rested in the games when you don't need a holding midfielder. His example is Luton Town at home when they're going to sit behind the ball. Do you need Kamara's qualities? Probably not. So maybe Tielemans starts them. But like you, even if he plays well, he's not going to get a run of 5 or 6 games in the league because you might play Man United the next game and you'd want Kamara back in for that. So
and I think in every Premier League game you have to respect the opponent. And I totally get the point that was made there. But even against Luton and Sheffield United, you'll go in spells where you need to win the ball back to make for a quick transition or whatever it may be. So Villa will play their best 11 in their Premier League games. I'm sure of it. Emery keeps saying that that's the first competition for Villa. Tielemans starting in those games, if he starts, I'm not sure it will be for any other reason, apart from it being an injury or suspension or those players missing out. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he thought he'd come in and he'd play over Luiz and he'd win that shirt quite comfortably. I'm not sure. I don't know. And I'm sure he wouldn't say that anyway. But as far as I can see it, he'll have a good run in the Conference League, playing some of those games. But it's not an easy route into the Villa 11 at the moment, especially if you're a midfielder. But it's also a very stacked position. It's one of Villa's best departments, if you will, because those players are so good. There's a lot of depth there.
Let's do some fan questions then. I asked on Twitter last week about the fan phoning returning. I get asked this all the time. Can we voice our opinions, bring it back? It was really good. We did it the first time. I think, was it you and me? It might have been me and Matt, actually. It was about this time last year. Yeah, I think we did it twice. We did it when Gerrard was a couple of weeks away from being sacked. I think the first time we had loads of people send voice notes in because it was anger, frustration. A lot of people wanted to vent their opinions, which is great. I tweeted last week saying me and James might possibly record it on the day we went to do some filming last week, and we had one voice note sent to me before we went to go and film. It was like, well, that's not enough for the podcast. So I'll give you a few more days to send some in. I've had about 5 or 6 since, which still isn't really enough to do a full show, so I want to insert them into this Monday show instead. The reason why we do things like this is because we'll go down avenues here of different talking points that we probably wouldn't have brought up ourselves. Especially, and international break is the perfect time to do that. In no particular order, we'll start with this one from Alex, I believe it is. It's 35 seconds. I'll play it and then I'll probably tighten it up in the edit afterwards.
My question is, with all the transfers in and out, yeah, pretty good. I agree with you guys on a B. But what happens with Unai Emery? What is in his contract? Every year big clubs fire managers and they come after guys like Unai. So I'm scared that Chelsea or Real Madrid will make a change and come after Unai Emery and poach him from us. So is there anything in his contract that keeps us protected, or could he just go?
Whether there's anything in his contract or not is something that we're not going to be privy to. We don't know the details of Unai Emery's contract with Aston Villa, sadly. Whether there's a kind of a protection clause in there or whatever, that he can only go to a Champions League club or something, I don't know. But then that would qualify that if Real Madrid come calling. So Champions League club. Protection that Villa have in terms of keeping Unai Emery is that he is contracted to us as manager for X amount of years, and the amount of years on the contract tend to be your protection. But I guess there is nothing stopping a big club going, Unai Emery is a great coach, we'll buy out his contract for 40 million or whatever it would take to buy him out, and that's the way we get him. What do you think about Emery being poached by somebody? Does that concern you?
I mean, in terms of the protection, again, we don't know, and we wouldn't know anything in his contract. That's like a personal thing, I suppose, more than anything else. Villa, have been building a structure around Emery. I've always said it's like a bit of a force field in terms of you've got Damien Vidigani, who was Emery's personal appointment. Monchi as well, someone he pushed for in the talks that Emery had with Suarez back in October, so last year. He was promised by Suarez to have these people around him to build a football structure that puts Emery at the centre of it in terms of he's one of the most important people at the club, of course, but he's working with people that he trusts and that he knows. So even in the scouting department and in the recruitment department, he's got people who he's working with, on a daily, weekly basis, or daily, especially in the transfer window. But he's got everything he needs at Villa, Emery, to succeed. And in previous clubs, Arsenal, PSG in particular, in those places, did he have everything he needed, or was he trusted enough by the people in power at those clubs to perform the role that he wants to perform? And I don't think he was. Look at Arsenal in terms of how they gave Arteta time. That's what can happen when you give managers belief, confidence, and ultimately the power to make decisions. And that's what Villa have done with Emery. So he's got everything he needs to succeed at Villa. I think the only reason why he would leave this project early, if that's what the question was alluding to, would be if it was a giant, a Real Madrid, Barcelona, or whoever. And they went after him and didn't just promise him to be the manager, but they promised him, time to build something at those clubs and that sort of thing. But you can't get that at the same time. Barcelona, if you lose 4 games, you're on the chopping block already, aren't you? So that's why Villa's got everything. He can go. I'm not going to say he's going to lose 5 games at Villa, but if Emery lost 5 games at Villa, Gerrard got sacked off the back of that, I think. Smith got sacked off the back of that. Sorry, Gerrard didn't get sacked off the back of 5 games, but similar poor run of form. But that's the sort of barometer, isn't it? If you lose that amount of games, then you're in trouble. But with Emery, I almost feel like fans would look outside of that, and that because we know that he can do it. He's got us into Europe. He can do no wrong, and that doesn't mean he can't be criticised. But at the same time, Villa are in the best position they've been in for donkey's years under Emery, and they've got a structure around him now to push forward. So for the club, if success doesn't follow with Emery, I don't know who it's going to follow with. And for Emery as well, he's got everything he needs. He's got all the tools, all the personnel, all the infrastructure. He's got everything at Villa, and it's that middling. Jesus, I don't want to say middling club. Villa are a huge club, but in terms of the aspirations, Villa aren't looking to win a title. Well, yes, we're trying to get towards the Champions League, but that's because we have someone like Emery.
Yeah.
Rewind 12 months ago, we were on the cusp of another relegation fight, weren't we? So Emery comes into these clubs, Sevilla, Villarreal, Villa, and yes, Villa are the biggest of those teams. We know that. But in terms of the aspirations in their individual leagues, this is the level that he plays at, and he always gets the best out of players and
agreed,
makes them better, and ultimately that brings the club forward. So that's why Newcastle wanted him as well. Ourselves and Newcastle are similar in terms of structure. Their aspirations now are probably to win a league title in a few years, but right now it's the same as us, really, to get in the Champions League. These are the clubs that he works best at. If he went to Man United, to be hounded out inside 2 months if he doesn't win all those games. So it's it's a marriage made in heaven, I think, and that's the protection for me. It's not a literal clause or anything like that. It's the fact that success has to follow as long as Emery continues to be committed, which I'm sure he will be.
This one's from Callum. It's not a voice note, sadly, but I'll quickly read it out. If Saudi Arabia came in for Emi Martinez for £120 million, would you sell? If not, what do you value in that? It's interesting, isn't it? Because transfer fees, when you look at them from a neutral point of view, you look at what, maybe Declan Rice to Arsenal for 100 million, you go, well, he's not worth that. But to West Ham, he's worth that. So that's how the transfer fee set. Jack Grealish to us was worth 100 million, probably more, to be honest. Emi Martinez to Villa is probably worth 100 million plus. Does Emi Martinez go in this market for 100 million? What would that be, the most expensive goalkeeper ever? Probably not. But if Villa had to sell him, they could ask that fee, I guess. So if Saudi came in for 120, it's a massive fee, isn't it? You
I presume, I don't know when this question was sent down, but I presume it was when their window was open. Yeah, I don't think you can kind of can't comprehend how good that would be in terms of Villa's books. How good, how much it would benefit the club moving forward. And Emi Martinez, I couldn't imagine a Villa team without him. And you can't talk highly enough about what he brings on and off the pitch, so it's not something you want to think about. But 120 million quid for any player is serious money. Like, you look at West Ham in terms of how they've spent it on Ward-Prowse, on other players, Edson Alvarez, all those players, they look to have, I think they've spent their money well, actually. Villa didn't. Let's have it right.
Grealish money.
Yeah, Danny Ings is no longer at the club and we overpaid. Leon Bailey hasn't hit the heights that we'd expect of him. And Emi Buendia's, been good in patches, I'd say. But West Ham have done it differently, and I think they've done it well. So you can do it. I don't think you need to be off-putted by, if you get big money for a player, Villa haven't spent it wisely in the past. I think it'd be interesting to see what happens if we had that sort of money from one player, and let's see what Monchi could do with it. But yeah, listen, I don't want to sell Martinez, but that money is, that's it's incredible. But at the same time, I don't think any Saudi club would pay that, because, and this is what I don't understand, they've got 17 billion quid to spend in the next 10 years on transfers. Why are they not spending 400 million on Salah? Just get him. Why not spend? I don't get it. Like, I think they bid for Osimhen like 120 million. Why not just bid 200? Just get him. If you want him, get him. Like, there's nothing stopping you. Look, every player has a price, and I wouldn't sell Martinez for anything less than, to answer your question, probably 70, because that is the record. But for the Saudi club or whatever, why not spend 100 million and get him? Do you know what I mean? It's I don't really understand it, and it's all very murky, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, murky is a good word for that situation. Yeah. Let's move on. I don't have a name for this one, sadly. It's only short. So, let's have this one from... Who's this from, John?
It's from Brian.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Ollie Watkins has clear opportunities in every single game so far. All right, he scored a hat-trick against Hibs, but is he really clinical enough? And is he really the main man to take us forward? Is he reliable enough to be that person?
I know your thoughts on him. I don't even need to ask, do I really?
No. I always... I understand the point that you can make, or look at compilations of Watkins missing chances that you might expect him to score. But I think you could do that with every striker, and I don't think you can judge Watkins just on goals. And if you do want to just judge him on goals, then it was only Haaland, Tony, Salah, Kane, Callum Wilson, and Marcus Rashford who scored more goals than him last season. And I know that's quite a few players, but all those players. But if Watkins scores all those goals, we're all saying he's a £100 million player, because if he scores all of them, he scores every chance he gets, he's got 50 goals a season. That's Haaland level. And every time he puts the ball in the back of the net, we say, oh, what a finish, Watkins again, as we did when he scored 9 and 11. So he can score on that rate, but equally, don't get me wrong, he can go 11 games with only scoring 1 goal, as he has. I just think that's what you're going to get with players who aren't the absolute elite level, and he's trying to get there. And I don't doubt actually that Emery will help him get there. And as we've seen with his form, it did that when he first came in and working with his coaches there, trying to tap into how Emery made Aubameyang, Carlos Bacca and Cavani elite strikers. That's now Ollie Watkins' challenge. And we're only 4 games into the season, so I don't like using the stat of 1 goal in 11 games. It doesn't really work with him because it's been such a long period of time, and yes, he was only Hibernian, but he scored a hat-trick there. So yeah, you can look at compilations and see some chances that he's missed, but he's so much more than goals. I'd argue that any other striker might not even be in those positions. I don't know. Name a striker that Villa's had recently. It doesn't. Yes, Diaby makes a lot of chances, and yes, we're good moving forward. But those chances are only there because Watkins has made that run and he's made that space. I understand both sides of it, but ultimately we know we've got a top striker there, a top striker that I don't doubt a lot of clubs are looking at right now. I don't know what price would you put on a player that scores 20 goals a season for Villa and that gives everything else as well. And to be fair, I backed him to get 20 this season, and I stand by it. I think he can get at least close to it.
Across all competitions, that
in the Premier League
and just the Premier League, okay.
Yeah, because he can go on those runs of form where he doesn't score many, but then he goes and scores 5 and 5 or 9 and 11 like he did last season under Emery. So yeah, I think he'll be fine.
I want to read a segment from James Rushton's newsletter in a second, because he did a whole piece about Ollie Watkins, which was very good, and I'll leave a link to the full version in the comment section for this podcast. Before we get into that, I want to mention XG very quickly, and I can imagine people already going, oh, sweet. Oh, my dad's watching this, he'll be going, oh, what a load of nonsense XG is. I know that's some people's approach to it. And in this aspect, I agree that it is nonsense. But before we get into the specifics, can you give me a very quick 30 seconds on what is XG for people that maybe don't fully understand it?
It's basically a measurement of how many goals, the likelihood of you scoring, should we say, and it's based on positions on the pitch and kind of historical data. So if Villa have 1 XG, that means they should have scored about 1 goal based off the chances that they had in a match, if that makes sense. I think it does.
So different shots are worth different
angles,
scoring, basically. So a shot from 18 yards to an open goal is a much easier chance to score than from 30 yards from the angle of the corner flag. Terrible examples, but 2 shots there would be listed on the stat sheet as Villa had 2 shots, but one is clearly worth more than the other. There was a tweet that was doing the rounds from a kind of an aggregator page the other day. Ollie Watkins has the most XG, 2.18, without scoring in the Premier League yet this season. So he would be expected to have scored 2 goals in the 4 games so far, but hasn't scored any, is the message. Now, XG in that instance is that it's a tool that is used to assess more long-form data, really, to see if how a player is doing over the course of a season or a couple of months, and whether they're on target for what they would expect to be contributing to that side. 4 games is such a small sample size that it's almost not even worth looking at things like the league table. It's a very good cliche, isn't it, that you don't look at the league table till 10 games. We shouldn't really be looking at a player's XG after 4 games because it's such like I said, a small sample size. And James Rushton wrote about this, so I'm just going to read a paragraph of his newsletter. But here's some numbers. 14 goals, 11 goals, 15 goals, 0. 14.5 XG, 11.6 XG, 16.5 XG, and 1.8 XG. So pretty much every season he's done what he's been expected to do. What we can gather from this is a striker who will only slightly underperform his expected return over the course of a full season. The reason we can gather this is because we have seasons worth of data and 2 points of comparison. How many goals he scored versus how many goals he was expected to score. On average, Ollie Watkins will provide mostly what is expected of him. What we can also gather is that he can be streaky. As you said, John, he'll underperform and then overperform. And what we're left with is something entirely normal. And the full piece to that I'll leave down below. But there was a section later on, which I'm not going to read word for word, but I agree with it wholeheartedly, about how we're overly critical, possibly, of Ollie Watkins as Villa fans, because out of all of the strikers across the Premier League, for the vast majority of us, he's the only one that we will watch 90 minutes of week after week after week. Now, you'll see bits of Haaland when Man City are on Sky, and bits of Ivan Toney in a great game where he'll score a hat-trick or whatever, but you're not watching Ivan Toney for 90 minutes, 38 games every season, so you don't see all of the opportunities where you think he should have scored there. For Ollie Watkins, you do, because we're Villa fans and we watch every minute of Villa. So you see those times when you think, he probably should have finished that, probably should have done better. And that will apply for all strikers across the Premier League. And it's that the age-old argument of, if he scored all the chances he got and scored 35 Premier League goals, he wouldn't be at Aston Villa, would he? Yeah. And he'd be in the England national squad.
Yeah, and it's all well, as I said before, it's all well and good Villa being, a creative team, and we have top players in and around Watkins. But at the same time, you couldn't just put any player there, or person, striker, whoever, and expect them to just score the goals. They still need to, as I say, make those runs, play off the shoulder, and know when to make link with the team. He's much more than goals, and I'm just not a fan of picking out compilations of players. Like, if you look back in the day, any player, any striker, probably even Benteke probably missed a hatful of chances that we'd expect him to score, but because compilations and things on YouTube weren't a thing back then, as far as I know, at least people weren't chopping them up and saying, "Oh, look at the chances he's missed." You're not going to get that with any player. But I think it's just the modern era. Players are under the spotlight constantly, and again, we're not telling people, you're incorrect. It's not the point. Should Ollie Watkins score those chances? Yes, he should, and he'll be the first person to say that. But you need to balance it up, and over the course of the season, he'll get the goals, as James said that he should. Basically,
let's go to another voice note then. This one is from James, not James Rushton, a different one. He says, loves the podcast. It's a minute long, so let's hear what James has to say.
We are going to get it wrong. I think Newcastle and Liverpool are prime examples of that. And recently we haven't been used to us getting it wrong. I think that's also due to the fact that Emery has had success in terms of qualifying for Europe almost ahead of schedule, and the fact that he's done it in less than a year, when a lot of other managers take a lot longer to implement their style in the Premier League. For the next few games, we'll see a few more mistakes because the teams had to be mixed up. Moreno and Mings out, new signings, having to learn how Unai likes to play. We're going to see a few more mistakes. I think also that it's going to come to a point in the season where we're going to have to prioritise a competition. Personally, for me, I'd love to see us win a trophy. It guarantees us European qualification next season. And just as a final question for you all, who do you think is the most improved player under Unai Emery?
So that's a great point from James. I agree with everything he said about kind of Villa. Again, a bit of, like Ollie Watkins, overperform what we were expected to do last season. To jump up from where we were when he took over to finish in 7th is unbelievable, as we've discussed on the show many, many times. Let's just hone in on the last couple of points. Most improved player we'll do in a second. If Villa were to prioritise a competition at any point this season, which competition would you like to see us prioritise?
I think the question itself would lend itself to the Conference League, because if we're prioritising something, that means that we've gone deep and we're in the quarterfinal or something like that. We can't prioritise the Premier League if it's the only thing we're in. Oh well, sorry, we have to. Emery wants to qualify for the Champions League and he wants to win trophies. Those are his two main ambitions as Villa head coach, and he can do one of those things this season. And we're probably the favourites to do so up until those teams in the Europa League come down. And as far as I can see in the group stages, that there aren't many teams there that will come down that are going to particularly scare Villa. Villa getting into the Europa League next season as well will be massive, to basically copy what West Ham have done last season, not the league finish. We don't want to go that far because that would prove something's gone badly wrong. But Emery says the Premier League's the first competition, which I understand, but absolutely, if we get to the quarterfinal, semi-final, we will go fully into that competition and we'll try everything we can to win it, because that will solve everything. We're in Europa League, Emery's favourite competition. We're in, we've won something as well, which ends, what are we on now? How many years?
27 or 28, I think.
I think it'll be 28, won it since next year if we get to the final. That will be the priority. But at the same time, you're looking at the League Cup and you're thinking, well, if we go far in that, then the final will be in, is it February, I think?
It's usually around that time. I think it was the 1st of March, the last time we were in it.
And I don't think we would have even started the Conference League knockouts by then. So you can almost have a League Cup run and then start a Conference League run. So I'm not going to say we're going to win 2 trophies, but there's opportunities there for Villa. And this is why 4 games into the season, we've lost away to Newcastle and Liverpool, arguably 2 of the 3 hardest places to go in the league campaign. There's no need to be, I'm not saying negative because I understand the points that the caller made, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of optimism that's still to be there. But I understand we need to be a bit wary in terms of Emery has changed some things over the summer, and there will be teething issues, at least at the start, but it's, as I say, it's a very long season ahead. Yeah,
and very quickly, most improved player under Emery so far? I can think of 2.
I'll say John McGinn.
Yeah,
not because he doesn't have, not because he didn't have that quality before, because I actually think we saw it in the Championship, but in terms of how his game has changed, I'd say the difference in form, I suppose, I'd go with John McGinn.
I remember having these exact conversations this time last year, which it feels such a long time. Emery's been here now. It's not even been quite a year yet. And it was, who has Steven Gerrard improved so far? And it was like maybe 1 player. Ezri Konsa, I think, has improved once again over the last 12 months. Yeah. John McGinn is the probably perfect example. I mean, you could be loads. Douglas Luiz has got infinitely better in the last year as well. It's really difficult to perform, I think. Yeah, and that's the key. Get the best out of the players you've already got before you start kind of worrying too much about recruitment. Although recruitment is important, obviously. If you can get the best out of the underperforming players that were there from the manager before, that will go a long way to improving the side, which is exactly what we saw last year. Now, the 2 videos we did last week, I thought were, obviously I'm biased here, I thought they were very good. The 2 podcasts we did, the one with James about transfers and the one with Alex about the Villa ladder, I did less views than I would expect. I'm just going to put that down to that it was good weather last week and people weren't sitting down to watch YouTube, and not any personal, that people thought the episodes were crap. So I honestly thought they were really good, and if you've not seen them, I urge you to go back and watch them. The one with Alex we did called the Villa Ladder, I don't know whether you've had time to catch up on it yet, was rating the players it was 24 players, from 24th to 1st on who is most important to Emery. Yeah. And we had Ollie Watkins and Emi Martinez as 1 and 2 in both of ours, but in the reverse order. So as a plug to get people to go back and watch that, like I said, it is worth it. I wanted to get you to list your top 5. I thought the top 5 was easy and the bottom 5 was easy and the middle section was difficult to pick. Yeah. So if you had to order from 1 to 5, who are Unai Emery's most important lieutenants?
In order?
You can either do 1 to 5 or 5 to 1, yeah.
Oh, God. I have 5 players, which is hard enough as it is, but ordering them isn't. Okay. I'm going to judge this on what's the biggest drop-off, basically.
Yeah.
So Martinez would be the most important player. Mm-hmm. I think you'd have to say Watkins after that, again, because depth. I like John Duran, but the depth isn't quite there.
It's difficult, man. It's really hard.
I'm angling, and I didn't think I'd put him in 3rd, but I'd maybe put Konsa, you know.
That's what Alex put.
If you're looking at the team now and who would we miss right now the most, I think you'd probably say, not Konsa for 1st, but I think for 3rd, just because he's, like if you take out Torres or Carlos, I mean, Carlos might be injured for the Palace game because it was a small hamstring injury, but those players, they're still adapting, I think, especially to how Emery wants to play. And Konsa just knows it, and he's adapted really well. So yeah, he's in 3rd for me. And then I would be putting either Diaby or McGinn. I think both of them are just as important as each other in a way, in terms of they both give different things, but something that Villa can't replace. Diaby's quality in the final third is just exceptional, and you can't replace John McGinn for his leadership, his power on the ball, how he drives Villa forward. I think the closest thing we have to it is probably Jacob Ramsey in terms of how he can turn a man and go. So I'd say those players. It's crazy how I haven't put like Kamara, Luiz, those players, but again, I think with Tielemans, if you take Kamara out, you can bring Tielemans, does a different job, but you can get by with that. So yeah, I'd go Martinez, Watkins, Konsa, and Diaby and McGinn.
final talking point I want to go through. Like I said at the start of the show, this has been a bit of a news update, really, rather, because there's been no match to talk about. So we've done internationals, we've done squad depth. The other thing that's happened this week has been some ticket prices. Obviously, this doesn't apply to you really because you go to games as a journalist now, and you're not a match goer in the sense that you buy a ticket to go. But I'd still like to get your opinion and just quickly reference the two categories that have come out, let's say, which is not the right word. But we've had Carabao Cup prices for the Everton game at home, and the European group stage fixtures have been released as well, and the prices for those. So very quickly, Carabao Cup prices, the cheapest adult ticket to see Villa versus Everton in the third round of the Carabao Cup is £30.50, rising to £42.50 in the 1888 seats, which is the middle hospitality section of the Trinity. It used to be free, of course, the first round of the Cup at home, if you're a season ticket holder, which obviously was taken away this year. Annoyingly, we get a home tie in the first round, which would have been nice to get that for free, but it isn't. So when we're talking in the summer about how much season tickets have gone up cost-wise in terms of a percentage, if you're now factoring in if there's a £30 ticket for the League Cup game, that tweaks it slightly as well. The European fixture games, the lowest prices are £25 per game, rising to £35 in the middle section of the Trinity. I'm lower Trinity, and it's 30 quid for me. So I'm like one of the higher zones. I think it's either zone 1 or zone 2. Villa are also in a bundle of all 3 games, which is the lowest zone there is £67.50, rising to £86.40. For me, where I sit, it's £81, which is 27 quid per game, which I think is decent value, especially in comparison to the Carabao Cup fixtures. Having said that, if I did pay per game, it'd be 90 quid. So I'm only saving 9 quid by taking up the bundle, but a saving is a saving is a saving, isn't it? So it's still worth having. I think the comparison here on social media has been, why were the Carabao Cup fixtures so expensive at 35-ish quid versus the European games, where you consider the Conference League to be a bigger competition than the first round for us of the Carabao Cup? Where do you kind of sit on the debate of ticket prices generally?
Yeah, firstly on the European games, I think they're actually quite reasonable. I think, especially because Villa haven't been there for so long, not that should really play a part in it, but I don't think there can be any sort of, negativity, I suppose, about those prices. I think they're about right. The Everton game, I think, is too expensive, but I'd like to know under what I suppose circumstance are they that price? Is it because it's a Premier League club and that a Premier League club would just be more expensive in terms of a ticket? If we played, I don't know who actually is in the competition.
Well, this is the follow-up point I was going to make.
If it was a League Two team, I don't think it would be 30 quid. Put it that way. So
well, if we get through past Everton and we're at home to a League Two side in round 4, is it going to be 36 quid again, or will it be cheaper?
I don't have those answers, but
yeah,
I'm only going off what this ticket is. I think it's too expensive for a. It's not the first round of the cup, but I don't know.
It's the first round. It's the third round.
Is it?
Yeah,
third round of the cup, and I don't know what usually Villa are in the second round of the League Cup. Previously in the first round, but second round since we've been a Premier League team again. And I don't know what the prices were for those games. Maybe it then went up to 30 quid for the third round. I don't know. But I would presume it's because it's a Premier League club. I don't know. That would be my only guess. But I'm not, using that as a justification. I do think it's a bit too much. But the European games, I think, are well priced. I mean, does it go to the fourth round? In terms of League Cup, you got third round that we're in now. Then is it the fourth? Then is it the quarters? So Villa are, 3 games away from hosting a semi-final at Villa Park. So if we can get past Everton, which, touch wood, we do, then we're not a million miles away from Wembley. So I don't know again whether the prices were this price in the third round, and we just didn't quite feel it because we either didn't get there last season or seasons previously. Because the second round was a game that we played, and this time we didn't. I don't know. But yeah, 30 quid against Everton, I think, is a bit steep. But yeah, those are the prices the club have gone with.
Yeah, we had a story go out in the week where it compared the ticket prices to other clubs in the Premier League. So obviously Villa offered it the free Carabao Cup ticket before as a season ticket holder, and that was removed this year. Remember the statement was like, "Do you remember how we promote the free season ticket? Oh, well, we're taking that away." And it was like, "Oh, thanks for that." So we've got Liverpool tickets are a third of the price as Villa's, starting at as cheapest as £9 for their game against Leicester City. Their most expensive price is £35. It's worth noting that they've priced low to account for their second tier opposition. Bournemouth, Brentford and Fulham are charging less than Villa for their home games. Newcastle are yet to reveal their prices, with Man City leaving only Chelsea and Man United with more expensive, lowest price tickets than Villa.
So Chelsea play Brighton, don't they? So that's a Premier League clash. Is there any games there that aren't in London that are Premier League clashes, do you know?
So Man United play Crystal Palace at Old Trafford, so their tickets is more expensive than ours. I don't know what the figure is, but it just says it's more expensive than ours.
It's Man United. I don't know if there's a game that is, I don't know, Palace versus Sheffield United, for example. But
Brentford play Arsenal, so Brentford's are cheaper than ours, and they play Arsenal.
Yeah.
Bournemouth play Stoke. West Ham are away at Lincoln. Newcastle have got Man City, so those haven't been revealed because they play each other. They probably haven't been revealed since.
Yeah, I presume it's up to the club how they price it, but I'm sure them playing a Premier League club would probably come into their pricing of the game. But I understand your point, Dan. If Villa then play Lincoln at home in the next round, which hopefully we do, whether that's £30 or not, I mean, maybe, because it's then going to be, as I say, closer to Wembley. I don't know what the pricing's worked out as, and I don't know if the club have to explain it, but maybe that would help in terms of them not receiving the sort of negativity that they have about those tickets, because that was kind of the big talking point from the international break, really.
Yeah, and it was worth us talking about. I think if you just look at the fixtures quickly, we're at home obviously this weekend, Saturday the 16th. We have got Everton in the League Cup on Wednesday 27th, Brighton at home Saturday the 30th, and then in the European fixture again against Zrinjski Mostar on the 5th of October. It's a lot of games at Villa Park, and it's a lot of travel, a lot of paying for parking, food and whatnot. So I'm not suggesting that Villa should have gone, oh yeah, well, it used to be free, so let's make it free again, because they've already kind of backtracked on that in the summer. But it's my point that I made in the video when we spoke about season ticket prices of, unless Villa can't set a minimum price because it's decided by the league, which I don't think it is because of the differences in the cost across the other clubs. I would love Villa to just go, look, we know you're going to be at Villa Park a lot over the next few weeks. We love your support. It's a night game. We want you to come and fill the stadium. We've just beaten Everton in the league a couple of weeks ago. £15. Like, set the precedent and be the cheapest ticket. And we talked about it before. Villa don't have to be kind of charitable and go, oh, here's a freebie. But if that Everton game sells 25,000 tickets at that price versus 42,000 at a lesser price, firstly, you've got a full stadium, which is great. More people can go. More fans who don't maybe get to go to Premier League games can go to the Cup game instead. Villa will earn more money from more people being there in food and drinks and stuff as well. So Villa don't miss out by having a cheaper ticket. And the difference between, I haven't got the maths here off the top of my head, but a sellout at 20 quid versus 25,000 at 30 quid, it's surely such a minute difference anyway that it would look good for them and be great PR to go, yes, we've got the cheapest ticket in the Carabao Cup fixtures.
I get that, Dan, but I think positive PR in football is, I don't think it really exists anymore. I don't know. I feel like the negativity kind of runs a lot more. But the only thing I'd say for that is, I think you are right. Cheaper tickets, you probably get more fans, which could make more revenue for the club. I don't know. I'm sure they would have done the maths for it. I suppose as well with the ticket prices, etc., all of this does help the club's financial outlook. And yes, it shouldn't be the fans that have to dig into the pockets to do that. And it's kind of like a full stop there. That's like the end of the sentence. But yeah, I think it's modern football. There's going to be demand for tickets. There was demand for the terrace view. There was demand. Got so many people on a waiting list. Football clubs are businesses these days, and whether fans like it or not, I don't see how ticket prices are going to go down in general. They're going to go up and probably continue to. So the only other thing I'd say about tickets as well, and this isn't Villa's fault at all, it's actually UEFA's fault. They still haven't put out the allocation, I don't think, or allowed fans to even buy tickets for the Legia Warsaw game away, which is next Thursday, which I think is a joke. Fans have bought plane tickets, they've bought hotel rooms, yet they don't know if they can even go to the game. It's balmy, and I'm not sure the exact reasons why, because I've been off in the last week and I haven't looked into it too much. But all I've seen is a club statement from Legia Warsaw basically saying we're waiting for UEFA to clarify what we can do in terms of capacity and how many fans are allowed in the stadium. So how that hasn't been sorted yet, I don't know. I'm not sure what you're waiting for. Surely you can.
I don't know
really
for sure.
that in the morning.
There's some kind of disciplinary hearing that they're waiting to hear of.
Maybe
if they've been punished for something that they've done in a previous round. I don't know if that's fully accurate, but if they've done something previously, it might be that the decision is a game behind closed doors. And that's why they can't yet sell tickets or a limited capacity or whatnot, which is obviously terrible for Villa.
Either way, you just know that however long this disciplinary hearing, whatever it is taking, I don't think anyone's really thinking about the fans that have to go to but would like to go to the game and have spent money to go to it. It's a farce, really.
Just going backwards slightly about how you mentioned like ticket price is good for the financial side of the club and all that kind of thing. The argument is always that, well, if you want a successful side, you've got to pay for it. You've got to have increased tickets, increased kit prices, increased season ticket prices, because if you're seeing success, it should be worth more to pay for it. There's such a demand that the club can rise the prices because the demand will fulfill the supply. However, the argument of like, oh, well, it allows us to buy better players is absolute nonsense. Villa charging a bigger ticket price for the Carabao Cup game does not enable them to go and spend 30 million in the transfer window, because the like I said, the difference in prices is minute anyway. I'm not even sure it all goes into the same pool that ticket price income equals transfer spend. Villa could absolutely take a stand and say, well, we're going to keep ticket prices low to look good, and like I said, good PR, but that's not the world we live in, and it's not the case, unfortunately. And like you said, with such a big backlist for season tickets, it should still be sold out, shouldn't it?
Supply and demand, like that's how it is. Like Villa, Villa have got what 30,000 on a waiting list, I think it is. But in the Championship, we had the Trinity Upper that was closed.
Trinity Low, yeah.
So, what at what level do you do you know what I mean? If the club as a business, which it is because it has to make money, are looking at prices and will we get enough fans by selling this ticket at this price, then they'll do it. They're not gonna trim the prices by half just to make a certain portion of the fans happy. I don't know how to explain that, and I don't want to get on anyone's kind of make the wrong point, but these are businesses and they have to make certain decisions, and unfortunately when you've got a capacity that's 42,000, that's 42,000 opportunities to make money. It sounds horrible, but
I suppose the flip side of that argument would be that if the club didn't make bad footballing decisions in terms of revenue, they wouldn't have to kind of look down the back of the sofa to find the extra change elsewhere. The amount of money that was spent to bring Steven Gerrard and his coaching staff in and then release them all months later would have been a massive amount to the amount we spent on Morgan Sanson to keep loaning them out and losing for nothing. Like, I know, again, it's two very different things, but Villa making poor footballing decisions shouldn't then be recouped by, well, let's just make the fans pay more for stuff.
Yeah, true. But as you said, Dan, they might not even come under the same bracket anyway, in terms of things. And Villa in Europe now, it's not as, I understand the point you're saying, but Villa have, they haven't been run appallingly. We've come such a long way. So the Championship, from not being able to sell out the Upper Trinity to now having 30,000 on a waiting list, it's gone so quickly. And I think the quicker Villa get to where they want to be, those things that fans will have to pay for will also go again, like we saw in the season ticket prices of Villa, about middle kind of 10th or something around there. You'd imagine, considering we've just finished 7th, that isn't going to, stop, should we say. We'll see what happens in the coming years with those sorts of prices. But yeah, 30 quid for an Everton game is probably a bit too much at this stage in the Carabao Cup.
Let's end it there. John, thank you for joining me as always. If you've enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to Claret and Blue, like the video and get involved in the comment section as well. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground on today's Monday show, this is what this show is for, to talk about things we wouldn't normally speak about. And we'll be back later in the week with a Crystal Palace preview and Inside Bodymore, where we'll look at Unai Emery's press conference later in the week. And obviously our post-match reaction show will return on Saturday evening as well. Thank you very much for watching this one. We'll see you again very soon.